The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Okay, welcome to the webinar on how to perform well in your exam. Because I'm in the UK, I've changed the timings around a little bit, so I'm not sure if people understood the right time. I'm in the UK, which is Greenwich Mean Time, but we're in British Summer Time, so it's Greenwich Mean Time +1, so it's 6 o'clock here. Obviously, if you're in the States, it could be any time really, 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock over there, I'm guessing, depending on where you are. If it's the first time you've joined one of these webinars, there should be a little control panel to the top right of your screen. You can maximize it by clicking on the arrow, and you can type a question in, or you can raise your hand. There's a little button to the left. It's an icon of a hand. If you raise your hand as we go along, then I can answer any questions that you have. You can either ask the question if you have a microphone or you're dialed in with a telephone, or you can type out in the questions pane if you have any questions, and I'll do my best to answer them. We'll have a question and answer session at the end as well, but if we're on a particular slide and you've got a question that's relevant to that slide, then feel free to raise your hand or just type in a question, and I'll, if it's relevant, then I'll answer it there and then. Now, because it's 6 o'clock in the UK, my family are having dinner and all that sort of stuff, so if you hear a 2-year-old screaming, then please accept my apologies. I've got twin 4-year-old babies and a 2-year-old, so but I've got my headset on anyway, so okay, we'll make a start then. So this webinar is all about how to perform well in the exam. So what I find is a lot of students, they do all the preparation, they've done all the exams and they're doing really well, but then they take the real exam and they let themselves down quite badly, and there's a number of factors involved. The two main ones are they haven't prepared for exam conditions, and answering exam questions for Microsoft or for Cisco is a strange way to demonstrate your knowledge. They tend to be quite vague in what they ask. The way they ask the questions is if they don't want to give something away. And the other type of way people let themselves down is through nerves. They get anxious, they start making mistakes and forgetting things, and the other thing is they just rush and lose track of time. So we're going to cover a few things, and hopefully it will help improve your performance. And by the way, this webinar has been recorded, so if you're a member of howtonetwork.net as a Platinum member, then you'll be able to download this, and I'll do my best to get it on the website tomorrow. All right, so let me find the next slide. The number one rule for success in the exam is to actually book it. The amount of people who've spent, and I refer to the Cisco CCNA, but this is the same for any exam, the amount of people who, instead of taking 2 or 3 months to take an exam, they take 6 months, 12 months, or even more. And whenever I speak to them, 9 times out of 10, they haven't actually booked the exam. Well, it's a funny thing, but if you haven't actually booked the exam, then as far as your goal setting goes, as far as your mind goes and your time, you've got nothing to focus on. So it's a paradox when people say to me, I'll book the exam when I feel ready. It just doesn't make sense. And it's like booking your driving test. Here in the UK, we'll book our driving test, and I think you can have a 6 weeks to 2 months wait. Well, as soon as you've got a date booked, it focuses your mind, you get concentrated on what you need to do, and especially because you have to wait so long for a retest and you have to spend a lot of money, which you do for exams as well, for your IT exams, it really does focus your mind. So if you haven't done it already, I strongly suggest that you, after the webinar, that you book the exam and get yourself a date set. If you book it online, you can always change the date. I think it's 24 hours notice. Do check when you book, but you can move the date if you really don't feel ready when the time actually comes. Okay. The other thing is drill, drill, drill. I said people let themselves down because they get into the exam and then they're surprised by the way questions are asked. Most vendors, Cisco, Microsoft and others included, They have preparation pages on their websites giving you samples of exam questions. They'll even give you mock exams. They have their own forums where you can you can't ask what questions you'll be asked, but you can ask about the type of questions. And there's lots of vendors out there as well that will do practice exams. We've got lots of them on howtonetwork.net, obviously. But you'll only know if you know a subject when you come to answer the questions about it. So you have to do something called desensitization. That means it's like putting yourself into a zone where you're uncomfortable, and it could be anything like running. It could be diving off a diving board, which was something I found hard when I was younger. Once you do something over and over again, you become desensitized and the fear seems to melt away. And for your driving test as well, you have lots of mock driving tests in the UK where you can practice going on actual exam routes and practicing all the things you'll be tested on in the real test. If the first time you've ever done an exam under time conditions is when you're actually taking the live exam, then you're not going to perform as well as you could be. You won't perform to your optimum. And I remind you of the Roman Army's motto as well, which is train hard, fight easy. I think that kind of speaks for itself, really. But I'm hoping that when you come to take the real exam, some people have said to me, well, actually, I found it a lot easier than the practice exams I've been doing. So that's quite a good position to be in, because you don't want to be just about at the level that you need to be at to pass. You need to be above the level. So if the pass rate's 85%, then you need to be getting 90-95% in all of the practice exams. All right, so getting it to sink in. This is another area that people seem to struggle on. You have to attack your brain in lots of different ways. So if you try to take the exam just by studying the theory, then you wouldn't be successful. If you just did hands-on labs, again, you wouldn't be successful. So you need to have a blended learning. Even if one of them is your favorite methods, the way your neurology and your brain works is you have different parts for visual, auditory, kinesthetic, and you need to sort of drill it in and get it to sink in by using all these different methods. So I recommend you do the theory for whatever the subject is. For example, wireless security. You do some labs if there are any labs for that particular area. Drill through the flashcards then, which is kind of the sort of questions you'll get in the exam, but it's drilling pure information. And then do some challenge labs. If you keep doing the same lab over and over again with the same IP addresses and the same commands, then when you come to a scenario in the actual exam, you're going to find it quite challenging. And then the next thing is to drill doing exams. Like I said, mock exams. Sorry about the noise. Mock exams. It's well worth spending a few dollars if you can get hold of them, doing exams that are kind of the star that you will be having in the real one. Now, I don't recommend anyone uses what's known as brain dumps. You can go to a website called CertGuard, CERTGURD.com, and that will tell you if the site that provides practice exams is giving you the actual exams. The problem with using those type of sites is they inevitably have the wrong answers. I've seen some myself when I was doing research for my site, and I've looked and they are giving you blatantly wrong answers. And the reason is the person taking the test in any week is doing a Microsoft test, a Cisco test, a Red Hat Linux test, a programming test. They could be doing a whole bunch of things. They're not a specialist. So really they're coming out of the exam and writing down as many answers and questions as they can. So don't do that. And keep going around the cycle. I guarantee if you keep following this cycle here, the information will sink in. And one of the main ways to test, or the main way to test for this, is to keep doing the exams. Some people say they've read the theory, they've done the labs and done the flashcards, and then they take the exam for something that they think they know, and they only get 20%. The reason is you're having to extract the information from your brain to answer a specific part for something that you've learned. So it's a whole of the skill in its own right. Some people say, oh, I'll just do practice exams a week before my real exam, it's far too late to do it. It's going to really dent your confidence if a week before the exam you're only getting 20–30%. All right, so keep going. No study session is wasted. If you do an hour or 2 hours or 30 minutes every day, it will never be wasted. Even if you think you're not getting anywhere, or it's just doesn't seem to be sinking in, and you're not doing well in the exams, or the labs don't make sense, it's never wasted. Just keep following the system, and eventually it will sink in. I mean, the way the brain works is everything is stored in the brain, everything you see and everything you read. So the problem isn't the information going in, it's the recall. And I'm not being flippant about that, but the information is in there, so we need to work on recalling it with doing the labs and the flashcards and practice exams. So how do you know you're ready for the exam? Like I said, you want to be at a point where you're further along the line than you need to be. So you want to be getting 95% in the practice exams at the very least. I mean, I don't expect you to be getting 100%, but if you're doing the same exam with the same 30 questions over and over and over again, it stands to reason you're going to start off with 30%, 50%, 70%, and eventually, if you keep doing the same exam, practice exam, over and over, then you're going to be getting 95% plus. For hands-on configuration, I'm not sure about Microsoft or other vendors, but certainly for Cisco, you get tested with your hands-on knowledge for most of the exams, unless it's design or some troubleshooting stuff or CCNP. You want to be at the point where it's almost boring. So you could look at a configuration or look at a challenge lab, and you've done the command so many times, you kind of turn to yourself, you roll your eyes, you think, you know, I know exactly what I'm going to type, so it's actually just a formality typing the commands out on the screen. When you get to that point, then you know you're at the right level for the exam. And one of the points that's come to mind is don't go over stuff that you already know. So if you've configured IP version 6 or you know all the theory, there really is no point in going back over it again unless it's a specific refresh session where you just want to brush up. But I see too many people going into study sessions and even in the gym, in my local gym, and they go in there and they're doing exactly the same workout that they did before, and they're not wondering why they don't get results. For Cisco people, and make sure you understand all the show commands. We've got them well documented on the site, and in every lab it should have show commands on there so you can prove off your configurations. The reason is, certainly for Cisco exams, you may well be given a network to configure or troubleshoot, and you will only understand what's actually broken by typing in show commands. Yeah, so show VLAN, show spanning tree, show IP route, anything like that. And the other thing is we've got plenty of cram guides on the site. Make sure you can recite the cram guide by heart. So basically you could write it out again if you needed to. And by the way, this is all stuff I've done from all my exams. I've done Microsoft, the MCSE, A+, Network Plus, and several Cisco exams. So this is all stuff that I've done and I found works well for me. I'm not sort of quoting anything from theory. So I think I mentioned at the start actually, to get through the exam there's two components. Not only do you need to know your stuff, i.e. you've done all the theory, the labs, the crams and the flashcards and everything, but you need to know how to pass exams as well. And I know a lot of people that just fall apart at the seams when it comes to exams, or as I said at the very beginning, they haven't prepared themselves for exam conditions and they don't perform very well. And they walk out of the testing centre completely baffled because they've done a lot of preparation, and I've helped a lot of people and coached them in that exact same scenario. All right, the other thing is I hope this takes away some of the pressure, but some people treat it as life or death. It's only an exam. I've failed plenty of exams in my life for law degrees, entrance exams to jobs, getting into the police. I had to apply twice. I failed a couple of Cisco exams and a Microsoft exam, and we've got a CCIE on the site who's a dual CCIE, and he's failed his first foundation exam 5 times. and now he's a top-level consultant. So we all fail something. If you're not failing something, then you're not trying really. So, again, I put this picture in. Maybe this guy's got an exam score and failed, but it's just laugh it off. And if that does happen to you, all you need to do is work out where you went wrong and what you need to improve on, and then book the exam and take it again next time. Okay, I've done a whole other webinar on motivation, which you can access on howtonetwork.net. But keep your booking in sight. So put it on a post-it note on your fridge, put it on your mirror in your bathroom for when you're shaving, put it on your monitor so you can see it. Keep it focused. Remember, you're only going to be studying for a few weeks, so you do have to be obsessed in a way, but it's only for a period of time. For some of the advanced Cisco exams, you're talking 18 months or 2 months of study, but for the lower level ones, each exam, you should only really be taking 2 months, so 60 days. And count down to the exam date, count down in your diary or a calendar, and take responsibility. If you're not getting study sessions done, it's down to you. If people are interrupting, it's down to you to deal with those interruptions. If you're having problems with work and long hours, you've got to do something to take responsibility to get yourself through that exam and stay focused. And have a structure. You really do need a timetable. I've got one for my workouts. I've got one for business. The whole of today I've worked on things that were I've got a written planner, and I write down what I need to achieve, little steps I need to take every day to get me to where I want to be with my business. So we've got a 60-day to CCNA program on howtonetwork.net, which is free. We will be adding other certification tracks as we go along. But you must structure your own study sessions based upon your month, week and day. So never ever get up in the morning without your study sessions planned for that day. If you say to yourself, oh, I'm just going to pick up the book and read through it, then the chances are you won't do it, or you're just going to end up meandering through and not getting anywhere. Again, if you've got any questions, raise your hand. Otherwise, we can have some questions at the end. Now, I'll just use this Cisco CCNA as an example, but check off, do you know this? There's a syllabus for all of the exams. We've got them on the website. Otherwise, you can go to Cisco or Microsoft. Check off all the things you need to know. I tend to put it in a spreadsheet, and then I'll divide it into theory and practical. So some things you'll just need to know theory, some things you need to know theory and practical, and tick it off as you go along. There's something in our minds that takes us back to when we were children, and we love to get ticks, and we love to have little stars and little rewards and things. So tick off when you've achieved something, and so you know you've learned it, and you can go back to it at another point to refresh, but you know you need to move on. And the other thing is, it's just programming your mind. Your mind's, as you know, I'm sure, is very much like a computer in the way it stores and retrieves information. So you've got to change yourself into a success mindset. I do write affirmations, which is something you normally write down. You do it in the present tense in a positive way. So you see there, I happily study. If you put down I study 2 hours every day for my exam, then it doesn't necessarily have the right energy. So I happily study 2 hours every day for my CCNA. That sort of thing tends to really work, and like I said, it's worked for me. We've got a HitNo track on how to pass the exam on How to Network as well, which is there for members. And cue cards as well, just small cards that you can write things on. You can write memory joggers, and you can write affirmations. You can write down your exam date and say it is, and then put the date, and I've passed my exam. And for those of you that aren't particularly organised, you need to get organised. So many people I've heard of turning up to take their exam, and they're turning up the day after or the week after or the wrong month. I was watching a programme yesterday. We've got some documentary stuff. It's a bit of fly on the wall, but it's based around an airport. And this family turned up for their holiday, but the guy turned up a month early. he thought he'd booked his exam for August, but him and his whole family turned up for the airport in July. So they'd arranged taxis, hotels and everything before they departed, and they're all turned up at the airport with all their suitcases packed. And this is a grown man, he's in his 40s, he's married with children. And I know we're all human, but this is really important, and you're going to be throwing money away. So triple check your exam dates, check your testing centre location. I've booked exams before, not realising we had 2 testing centres in my city, and I've turned up to the wrong testing centre. Other cities have lots more than 2 testing centres. And I recommend doing a test drive as well. I've driven past my local one quite a few times, but when I came to book the exam, I drove there and then didn't realise that the car park isn't very near. So I ended up getting anxious. I found a car park and then realised I didn't have enough change. So then I had to run around finding a shop. And by the time I'd actually got to the testing centre, I was really anxious. I was sweating, I was nervous, and I didn't perform as well as I could have. I still passed, but we just don't need that kind of stress in the exam. So do a test drive if you can. Somebody else I know on a member of my website, he turned up or drove to the testing centre and there'd been a diversion in place for about a week. They'd closed some of the roads and he had to drive around like a mile or 2 to get to where he needed to go. And it's going to start raising the anxiety levels in your stomach. And like I said, you just don't need it. And this is just personal admin for the day. Most testing centres will need 2 forms of ID. You normally need at least one of them with a photo on, so your driver's licence or a passport, and then another form of ID, such as a credit card or something like that. Always take your testing confirmation with you. I turned up at a testing centre a few years ago for a Microsoft exam, and they didn't know I was coming. And they tried to say that I hadn't booked the exam or I'd got mixed up, but I'd actually printed out the testing confirmation, and it turned out they'd made a mistake on their end. Get there nice and early. I like to get to the testing centre a good 45 minutes to an hour early, and I'll normally find a coffee shop. I don't drink coffee. I'll have something that's non-caffeinated, and it just puts you at ease and lets you relax knowing that you've got there early. Another tip is I walk to the actual front door of the testing centre. Again, I took an exam I think a couple of years ago. I went to the front door of the testing centre at the time I needed to test, and they'd shut the front door. They'd moved the entrance to the back of the building, and it was a very big office complex. So I kind of had to walk all the way around the building. In the UK, you'd call it a block, I guess, but I had to walk, I think, 3 blocks to get all the way to the back of the building where they moved the entrance. So it's just another thing that you don't need. They should have water at the testing centre, but just in case, take water with you. In a bottle. They normally let you take water in. If not, then take 2 or 3 cups of water with you. I've already said avoid coffee for caffeine. Avoid alcohol the night before as well, and avoid all negative thoughts. I know it can be difficult, but read your affirmations. Listen to some hypnotherapy tracks. Don't do self-deprecation, which basically means you say negative things about yourself as a joke. A lot of people say, "Oh, I'm always doing that," or "I'm such an idiot," or "I never do well in exams." Just leave all of that talk behind. You don't need to be saying anything like that to yourself. And I tend to avoid telling other people I'm taking an exam as well. I normally tell my wife because she needs to know where I'm going, but I don't tend to tell work colleagues or anything like that. I normally turn up at work with some cakes or donuts, and if anyone says, "What's that for?" I'll say, "Oh, I've just passed an exam." And if you're taking exams so you can leave your job, you might want to keep it a complete secret. So I'll leave that up to you. Okay, so we're coming to the last couple of slides now, I think. This may be the last one. It's a fairly short presentation this time. In the exam, if you're doing the Cisco CCNA or a Network Plus, write out the subnetting cheat chart, which you get for free on How to Network. And you normally get a whiteboard. You can basically rub it out, and you have some sort of felt pen, so you can write out any key points. Some people say they want to write out the cram guide or the port numbers or access lists. that doesn't make sense to me, because the reason is you know it or you don't. So writing it out on your little whiteboard isn't going to make any difference. Whereas writing out the subnetting cheat chart, that's something that you can actually fill in as you go through the exam and you're answering questions, and it saves a lot of time. Normally when you take an exam, it's got a little exam simulation before the real exam, so you can practice ticking multiple choice, looking at diagrams, looking at scenario questions, that sort of thing. I do recommend you go through that even if you've taken lots of exams. The reason is it just settles you in nicely to the real exam. Keep an eye on the time as well. In exams, you can't be flippant and say I'm going to spend 2 minutes per question. The reason is some questions ask for one answer, some have multiple answers, some require you to look at diagrams, and some require you to do configurations. So it just really doesn't work that way. You've just got to look at the time. Don't dwell too long on the questions. If you really find yourself stuck, guesstimate. That means out of 5 answers, you can normally say 2 are definitely wrong, and then you've sort of kind of got to guess from the other 3. And I've done that lots of times, and you know, what is it? You've got a 33.3% chance of getting it right. So the odds aren't too bad. So don't spend too long. The things that are certainly a Cisco exam, some parts are given lots of points, and other parts are just given 1 point. The sort of things that get multiple points are obviously more detailed answers with multiple answers within one question, and also the hands-on configuration stuff as well. And follow your plan as well. If you've got a troubleshooting scenario in your exam, follow the troubleshooting system. We've got how to troubleshoot on howtonetwork.net. I like to use the OSI layer, so from the very bottom to layer 3 or 4. So is the cable plugged in, which it probably will be for an exam simulation? Does it have clock rates? Has the interface been no shut? Has it got the right encapsulation type, PPP or HDLC? Is the IP address correct on the interface? And finally, and subnet mask obviously, has it been no shutted? So the interface comes up. And then finally, check your routing. Has the correct network been advertised in the routing table? Literally, certainly for the Cisco CCNA, there's only 5 things they can break. So I often get baffled when people tell me they got stuck on the troubleshooting, because if you check those 5 things in order, you have to fix the problem. A little bit different for spanning tree, obviously, but we've got how to troubleshoot spanning tree on the site. Know your show commands and why you're using them. Don't be sitting there typing random commands in the exam. If you think there's something isn't working, type out the command that will give you the answer. And this comes with doing lots of practice on the labs. All right, and remember, this isn't life or death. You know, it's only an exam. Lots of people fail exams every day. Certainly for Cisco Foundation exams, 50% of people fail internationally. I know on How to Network, obviously, we've got a 90% plus success rate. And in fairness, the people who don't pass, they haven't followed the plan I've given them on the site, which is the plan we've discussed really, especially getting 95% in the practice exams. So come away, look at what didn't work for you, give yourself some feedback, give yourself a pat on the back and say congratulations for even trying. Do you know what? 90% of the people that sign up to my site and have come on my courses over the past 7 years never even took it. They gave up and they quit. So the fact you've even attempted the exam means you're a success. So there's no need to beat yourself up. Oh, there we go. We got to the end. So let's see. It's taken 30 minutes to run through it. I'm sure there's been no massive revelations there. You might have got a few little tips for things that will work to you before, during, and after the exam. So now I'll open up the floor. If you want to type out a question for me to answer, please type it out in the questions box. If you want to ask me a question on your microphone, on your PC or laptop or whatever, then if you raise your hand and I can unmute you and I'll answer your questions to the best of my ability. Sorry if there's been any background noise, and I'm sorry if the timings got mixed up for anyone. I'll try and make it clearer next time, but I'm in Greenwich Mean Time, but it's British summertime, so we take GMT and add an hour. So it's 6 o'clock UK time. But I think for the next one, I'll actually email a reminder maybe an hour before, just so everyone is on the same time and knows when it's starting.